The galaxy watched in fear as humanity walked away from the Forum Part 1. The Grand Forum on Xylos Prime was the heart of the known galaxy. Every major species sent their best minds, their most polished diplomats, and their most trusted leaders to sit in the vast, shimmering chamber carved from living crystal. For over 200 years, the Galactic Concord had kept peace among 300 different civilizations. Trade flowed. Wars cooled before they could burn. Disputes were settled with words, not weapons. And humanity, though late to the table, had earned its place, not through force but through stubborn honesty and quiet courage. Daniel Carter stood at the center of it all. He was tall but not imposing, with tired eyes and a calm voice that carried further than most expected. He had only been Earth's ambassador for 6 weeks, replacing a predecessor who had resigned after a bitter argument with the Concord Council over resource rights near the Helios Belt. Carter hadn't wanted the job. He'd been a history professor in Denver, teaching students about ancient treaties and forgotten wars. But when Earth's government called, he answered. Now he faced the full weight of the galaxy's attention. The chamber hummed with low murmurs. The air smelled faintly of ozone and alien spices. Tall, feathered delegates from the Velnus clade perched on curved perches. Gelatinous beings from the Merc Nebula pulsed softly in transparent tanks. Reptilian envoys from the core dominion sat rigidly, their tails coiled in neat spirals. All eyes turned to Carter as he stepped onto the speaking platform. He did not raise his voice. He did not gesture dramatically. He simply said, "Effective immediately, Earth and all its colonies withdraw from the Galactic Concord." Silence. Not the polite pause that follows a bold statement. Not the thoughtful hush before debate. This was true silence. The kind that falls when the ground drops out from under you. 1,000 beings held their breath. Even the ambient hum of the chamber's life support system seemed to fade. Carter continued, his tone flat, almost weary. "We will no longer participate in Concord decisions. We will not send representatives to future sessions. Our trade agreements are void. Our military liaisons will return to human space within 24 hours. Our embassies will close by dawn." He paused. "No one moved. We do not seek conflict. We do not ask for permission. We simply choose to walk away." Then he stepped down. No one stopped him. No one shouted. No one even rose from their seat. They watched, stunned, as Carter walked calmly through the arched exit, his human security detail falling in behind him without a word. The doors sealed shut behind them with a soft sigh, as if the building itself was exhaling in disbelief. Outside, the sky of Xylos Prime glowed violet. Carter did not look back. He boarded the small Earth shuttle waiting on the landing pad and gave the pilot a single order. "Take us home." Within the hour, every human diplomat across the Concord vanished. In the capital city of Vireles, Ambassador Lena Ruiz packed her office in under 10 minutes, leaving behind only a handwritten note that read, "Thank you for your time." On the orbital station Keth 9, Commander Paul Dawson powered down Earth's comms array and sent a final encrypted burst to Sol system before boarding the last transport. In research outposts, trade hubs, and listening posts scattered across 50 star systems, humans packed what they could carry and left everything else behind. Back on Earth, the news spread like wildfire. People gathered in city squares and living rooms and underground shelters. Some cheered. Others wept. Most just stared at their screens, confused and afraid. The government released a short statement. "Humanity has chosen a new path. Trust in each other. Prepare for change." That was all. But the galaxy reacted differently. On the Concord Council, panic bloomed like a slow poison. The core dominion demanded an emergency session. The Velnus clade called for restraint. The Merc collective pulsed in agitated patterns, their thoughts unreadable but clearly distressed. Rumors flew. Had Earth discovered a superweapon? Had they been infiltrated by a hostile force? Were they planning an attack? None of it was true. What the galaxy didn't know, and what Earth would not explain, was that the Concord had crossed a line no one saw coming. For months behind closed doors, senior Concord officials had pressured Earth to surrender its quantum core technology. This breakthrough allowed humans to run simulations across light years in real time, solving problems in seconds that would take other species centuries. The Concord claimed it was for the greater good, but Earth scientists had uncovered the truth. The Concord wanted to weaponize it, to predict and eliminate any future rebellion before it began. When Earth refused, the pressure turned to threats, subtle at first. A delayed shipment of medical nanites to Mars Colony Theta, a sudden audit of Earth's energy exports, a quiet rumor planted in the galactic press that humans were hoarding dark matter. Then came the ultimatum: hand over the core schematics or be labeled a security risk. Earth's leaders met in secret for 3 days. They debated, argued, and finally agreed on one thing: staying meant becoming a tool. Leaving meant becoming free, so they left. By the end of the day, Earth's presence in conquered space was gone. Ships that once flew the blue and white Earth flag now drifted empty or powered down. Human voices no longer echoed in diplomatic corridors. The galaxy felt the loss like a missing limb, and fear began to spread. Not because humanity had attacked, not because they had declared war, but because they had done something no other species had ever dared. They walked away from power, from influence, from the table itself. They chose silence over compromise, solitude over submission. In the Grand Forum, the empty seat where Daniel Carter had stood remained untouched. No one sat there. No one even approached it. It became a ghost chair, a reminder that the rules of the galaxy could be broken, not with fire, but with footsteps walking in the other direction. And as the stars turned overhead, the galaxy watched. Not with anger, not with hope, but with fear, because for the first time they realized that freedom was not given. It was taken, and humanity had just shown them how. The galaxy watched in fear as humanity walked away from the forum part. To Chicago had always been a city of noise, honking cars, chattering crowds, the hum of old power lines, but now it felt strangely quiet. Maya Lin sat by her apartment window, watching rain slide down the glass. Outside, people moved with purpose, but their faces were tight with worry. News drones buzzed overhead, flashing updates no one really understood. Earth had left the Galactic Concord. That much was clear, but why? And what came next? Maya knew more than most. She had spent 12 years as a cultural liaison for the Conquered, translating human art, law, and ethics into forms other species could grasp. She had sat in rooms where alien diplomats debated whether humans were too emotional to be trusted with deep space navigation. She had defended Earth's right to self-rule more times than she could count. And she had seen the shift, the moment the Concord stopped seeing humanity as partners and started seeing them as problems to manage. Her old office at the University of Chicago was empty now. Classes had been suspended. Students were either volunteering for civil defense or packing for off-world evacuation drills. Maya had been asked to return to government service, but she refused. Not out of anger, but exhaustion. She just wanted to understand what came next. On her screen, a live feed showed President Elena Ruiz addressing the world from Geneva. Her voice was steady. "We did not leave because we are afraid. We left because we refuse to be controlled." She spoke of new projects, of unity, of building something that belonged only to humanity. But Maya heard what wasn't said. Earth was preparing to disappear. Meanwhile, far from Earth on Mars Colony Theta, Kyle Brooks wiped grease from his forehead and stared at the blinking console in front of him. He was an engineer, not a soldier, but since the withdrawal, everyone wore more than one hat. His job used to be maintaining atmospheric recyclers. Now he was tearing apart Concord surveillance nodes hidden inside the colony's mainframe. He had found the first one by accident, a tiny device no bigger than a grain of rice, embedded in a data relay near the Children's Learning Center. At first he thought it was a glitch, but when he ran a deep diagnostic, he uncovered layers of encrypted signals being sent off-planet, not to Earth, not to any human station, to a Concord black site near the Orion Spur. Kyle didn't sleep for 2 nights. He traced the data streams, decrypted fragments with old Earth algorithms the Concord didn't know humans still used. What he found made his blood run cold. The nodes weren't just watching. They were scanning. Specifically, they were collecting genetic profiles of every child born on Mars Colony Theta over the last 5 years. Age, neural development, immune response, even emotional resilience, all logged, categorized, and transmitted. One file stood out. It was labeled Project Cradle. Inside were notes in core script, translated by Kyle's jury-rigged decoder. Subjects show high adaptability to zero-gravity neurogenesis. Recommend Phase 2. Selective breeding trials with wellness hybrids. Kyle vomited in the maintenance bay. He reported it to Colony Command, but the message never went through. The comms array had been remotely locked. That's when he knew. Earth's withdrawal hadn't just angered the Concord. It had triggered something worse. The Concord wasn't just losing a member. It was losing control of a species it had already decided to reshape. Back on Earth, Maya received a secure message. No sender ID. Just a string of coordinates and a single line. They were watching our children. She recognized Kyle's encryption key from their old Concord days. She didn't hesitate. She packed a small bag, left a note for her neighbor, and took the next maglev to Geneva. At the United Earth Directorate headquarters, she was escorted through 3 layers of security before meeting Director Eris Thorne, a quiet man with silver hair and eyes that had seen too many compromises. He didn't greet her. He just handed her a data chip. Project Exodus, he said. It's real. Maya plugged it in. Schematics filled the screen. Massive arcs, each capable of holding 50,000 people. Quantum entangled comms that couldn't be traced. Habitat rings designed to mimic Earth's biosphere down to the soil microbes. And routes. Hundreds of them. Leading to star systems not on any Concord map. We're not hiding, Thorne said. We're leaving the map behind. Maya understood then. Earth wasn't planning to fight. It was planning to vanish. Not all at once, but slowly, quietly, like fog lifting at dawn. Families would board arcs under the cover of night. Cities would power down sector by sector. Even Earth itself would be masked, its biosignatures dampened, its radio signals folded into white noise. But why tell me? She asked. Because you know how to preserve what matters, Thorne replied. Not just data, not just history. The feeling of a lullaby, the taste of rain, the way humans laugh when they're truly happy. The Concord never understood that. They saw tools. We see people. Maya agreed to help. She would lead the Cultural Continuity Division, tasked with archiving everything that made humanity human, not for aliens to study, but for future generations to remember who they were when no one else was watching. On Mars, Kyle finished disabling the last surveillance node. He then did something reckless. He sent a fake signal back to the Concord Black Site, a looped message showing all colony children as genetically unstable, prone to rapid decay and low gravity. It was a lie, but a useful one. If the Concord thought human DNA was flawed, they might lose interest. He knew it wouldn't hold forever. But it might buy time. Time for the arcs to launch. Time for Earth to fade. Time for humanity to choose its own story. In Chicago, the rain stopped. Maya looked up at the sky, wondering if her great-grandchildren would ever see Earth again, or if they'd be born under alien stars, telling stories of a blue planet that chose freedom over fear. And across the solar system, humans worked in silence, not building weapons, not plotting revenge, just packing their memories, their hopes, and their future into ships pointed toward the unknown. The galaxy still watched, but now it watched a ghost. And ghosts, once they decide to leave, are very hard to catch. The galaxy watched in fear as humanity walked away from the Forum Part 3 months past. The stars turned, and Earth grew quieter. What had begun as a sudden withdrawal became something deeper, a slow, deliberate fading. Cities dimmed their lights at night. Broadcast towers fell silent. Spaceports that once buzzed with interstellar traffic now stood empty. Their landing pads cracked with weeds. To the rest of the galaxy, it looked like collapse. But on the ground, it was something else entirely. It was preparation. President Elena Ruiz stood on a hill outside Nairobi, watching the last transport lift off from the East African launch corridor. Below her, engineers dismantled the orbital tether that had once carried millions into space. Not because it was broken, but because it was no longer needed. Humanity wasn't going up anymore. It was going out. Far beyond the reach of Concord sensors, beyond the edges of known star charts, into the dark, where no one would think to look. Project Exodus was no longer just a plan. It was life. In underground labs beneath the Andes, scientists perfected closed-loop ecosystems that could sustain 10,000 people for centuries. In shipyards hidden inside hollowed-out asteroids, crews assembled the final arcs, vast rotating cylinders named after old Earth rivers, the Mississippi, the Ganges, the Danube. Each carried not just people but seeds, soil, animals, libraries, and music. Not for show, not for legacy, but for survival. Maya Lin worked 16 hours a day in a vault beneath Geneva. Her team recorded everything. Grandmothers singing folk songs, children describing their dreams, farmers explaining how to read the wind before a storm. They didn't just save data. They saved feeling. A single audio file of a father humming to his baby was labeled Priority Alpha. A video of teenagers dancing in a Mumbai street during monsoon season was backed up in 7 locations. We're not preserving a museum, Maya told her team. We're keeping a heartbeat. Meanwhile, on Luna, Kyle Brooks stood in the shadow of a half-built shield generator. It wasn't meant to stop missiles or lasers. It was designed to bend light, heat, and radiation around the moon like water around a stone. Once active, Luna would vanish from long-range scans, not destroyed, just unseen. The same tech was being installed on Earth, Mars, and the Jovian colonies. Humanity wasn't hiding in caves. It was learning to become invisible, the Conquered noticed. Of course it did. At first, they sent polite inquiries. Is Earth experiencing technical difficulties? Can the Conquered offer assistance? When no reply came, the tone shifted. Patrol ships from the core Dominion began circling the Sol system, scanning for signs of rebellion. Trade monitors from the Velnus clade hovered near Jupiter's moons, watching for hidden shipyards. But they found nothing. No weapons, no fleets, just silence. That silence scared them more than any war fleet ever could. Rumors spread through the Grand Forum like wildfire. Some claimed Earth had built a planet-killing weapon and was waiting for the right moment to strike. Others whispered that humans had made a pact with an ancient, forgotten race from the galactic core. A few even believed humanity had simply gone mad and chosen collective suicide. None of it was true. The truth was simpler, and far more terrifying to those who held power. Earth had decided it no longer needed permission to exist. Back in Chicago, Maya visited her old neighborhood. Most houses were empty now. Families had been relocated in waves, first the young, then the elderly, then the workers. Only essential personnel remained. She knocked on the door of Mrs. Rivera, her 80-year-old neighbor who refused to leave. "You think I'm scared of space?" Mrs. Rivera said, handing Maya a cup of real coffee, something almost unheard of now. "I'm not. I just want to die where I lived. Let the young ones go. They'll carry us with them." Maya sat with her for an hour, listening to stories about street festivals and summer thunderstorms. She recorded none of it. Some things she decided didn't need to be saved. They just needed to be shared. On Mars, Kyle received word that Colony Theta would be the last human settlement to evacuate. The Arks couldn't carry everyone at once, so priority went to children, scientists, and cultural archivists. The rest would follow in shuttles once the main fleet was safely away. He didn't mind. He had work to finish. He spent his nights calibrating the final phase of the planetary cloak, a network of satellites that would scatter Earth's thermal signature across a dozen false locations. To outside eyes, Earth would appear as 5 ghost planets, each flickering in and out of existence. By the time the Conquered figured out which one was real, it wouldn't matter. The real Earth would already be gone. President Ruiz gave a rare public address. She stood alone in a bare room, no flags, no symbols. "We are not running," she said. "We are choosing. Choosing to raise our children without watchers. Choosing to make mistakes without judges. Choosing to be human, not subjects." The speech lasted less than 2 minutes. Then the feed cut out. Across the solar system, the final phase began. In orbit, the Ark Danube detached from its dock and drifted silently toward the outer dark. On Earth, power grids were rerouted to essential zones only. In the oceans, deep-sea habitats sealed their hatches for the last time. Even the animals were being moved. Genetic banks filled with frozen embryos of tigers, whales, bees, and oak trees. The galaxy watched, confused and uneasy. They expected anger. They expected war. Instead, they saw a civilization calmly packing its home, turning off the lights one by one and walking into the night without looking back. And that was the most frightening thing of all. Because if humanity could walk away from everything, the power, the recognition, the safety of the group, then maybe freedom wasn't a myth. Maybe it was a choice. And if one species could make it, others might try. In Geneva, Maya uploaded the final cultural archive to the Ark Mississippi. It contained over 2 million hours of human life. Laughter, arguments, lullabies, protests, weddings, funerals, first steps, last words. She added one final file, a short video of herself standing in her empty apartment saying, "We were here, we loved. We chose to leave so we could remain ourselves." Then she closed the vault, walked outside and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the first arcs were already gone. Earth wasn't ending. It was becoming something new. And the galaxy, for the first time in centuries, felt small. The galaxy watched in fear as humanity walked away from the forum part. 4. The silence from Earth lasted too long. At first, the Galactic Concord tried to ignore it. They held meetings, passed resolutions, and sent more unanswered messages. But as weeks turned to months and months to years, the absence grew heavier. Trade routes once filled with human freighters now floated empty. Scientific collaborations stalled. Even the small things, human poetry and cultural exchanges, human medics in disaster zones, human music in public spaces, were gone. The galaxy felt colder without them. Then came the fear. It started with whispers in the Grand Forum. What if Earth was building something terrible? What if they had discovered a way to erase entire star systems? What if their silence was the calm before a storm no one could see coming? The Core Dominion pushed for action. The Velnus Clade urged caution. The Merc Collective pulsed in slow, worried rhythms. But all agreed on one thing. They could not let humanity vanish without knowing why. So they chose a path between war and diplomacy. They would send a team not to attack but to watch, to learn, to find out what Earth was really doing. Operation Veil was born in secret. A small strike team made of the Concord's best infiltrators was assembled. They were not soldiers, not exactly. They were observers trained to move unseen, to gather truth without leaving a trace. At their head was Vrel, a Cathar commander known for his sharp mind and colder judgment. He had once negotiated a peace treaty with a hive mind species using only scent signals and rhythmic tapping. If anyone could understand humans, it was him. Their target, Luna Station, Earth's oldest off-world outpost. The team arrived in a stealth vessel shaped like a drifting asteroid. They slipped past the outer defenses, what few remained, and docked in an abandoned maintenance bay on the far side of the moon. Inside, they expected weapons labs, hidden fleets, maybe even a command center for some grand human rebellion. Instead, they found emptiness. Corridors stretched in silence. Lights flickered on and off in random patterns. Air recyclers hummed at half power. Doors opened and closed without reason. It felt less like a base and more like a memory. Vrel led his team deeper. They passed empty dormitories, unused labs, and a schoolroom with tiny chairs still arranged in a circle. On a wall, a child's drawing fluttered in a faint breeze, a blue planet with smiling faces and the words, "I love Earth," scrawled in shaky letters. Then they found the message. In the central chamber, a single hologram looped endlessly. It showed Daniel Carter, the ambassador who had walked away from the forum. He looked older now, tired but calm. "We chose peace," he said. "You chose control. We will not be your lesson," the words repeated. No explanation, no threat. Just that Vrel stood frozen. He had expected lies, traps, or defiance. Not this quiet sorrow, not this finality. His tech specialist, a gelatinous scout from the Merc Nebula named Zinn, pulsed softly. "No weapons. No soldiers. No arcs here. They are already gone." Vrel checked the station's logs. All data cores had been wiped clean except one. It contained only star charts, all leading away from Sol, all marked with coordinates that made no sense, jump signatures that bent physics in ways the Concord didn't understand. Worse, scans of Earth itself showed something impossible. The sun was surrounded by a web of energy collectors, not for power but for concealment. A Dyson swarm, but not to harvest light. To hide it, Earth wasn't just leaving. It was erasing itself from the sky. Vrel ordered his team back to the ship. As they left, he paused at the airlock and looked out at the blue planet hanging in the black. It looked peaceful, beautiful, and utterly alone. Back on Xylos Prime, his report sent shockwaves through the conquered council. "Humanity is not arming," Vrel said, standing before the assembled leaders. "They are evaporating. Entire populations have relocated. Their technology has advanced beyond our tracking. They do not wish to fight. They wish to be forgotten." Silence followed. Then chaos, the core dominion demanded immediate sanctions. The Wellness Clade argued that humanity had every right to leave. A small species from the Rim world spoke up for the first time in decades. If they can walk away, why can't we? That question spread like fire. Within weeks, 3 minor species announced they were reviewing their Concord membership. 2 more stopped attending sessions. Trade between member worlds slowed as trust frayed. The Concord had always claimed to offer unity. But now it looked more like a cage, and humanity had just shown everyone the lock could be picked. On Earth, no one celebrated. In a hidden bunker beneath the Himalayas, President Ruiz watched the Concord's panic unfold on silent feeds. She felt no joy, only sadness. They never understood, she said to no one in particular. We didn't leave because we hated them. We left because we loved ourselves too much to let them change us. Maya Lin, now aboard the Ark Mississippi in deep space, received a final encrypted message from Kyle Brooks before he left Mars for the last time. It contained only 2 words. We're clear. She smiled. Somewhere out there, the last humans were slipping into the dark, carrying their songs, their stories, their freedom. And the galaxy, for all its power and pride, could do nothing but watch, because you cannot control what you cannot find. And humanity had made itself unfindable. Not with weapons. Not with war, but with the quiet courage to say no, and mean it. Vrel sat alone in his quarters after the council session. He replayed Carter's message over and over. We will not be your lesson. For the first time, he wondered if the Concord had been the student all along, and humanity, the teacher who walked out when the class refused to learn. Outside his window, the stars burned cold and distant, and somewhere beyond them, Earth was already gone. The galaxy watched in fear. As humanity walked away from the Forum Part 5 years after Earth vanished, the Grand Forum met one last time to speak of humanity. The chamber on Xylos Prime was not full. Seats once occupied by eager delegates now sat empty. Species from the Outer Rim had stopped coming altogether. Others sent only junior observers, their attention already turned inward. The Concord still existed, but its heart was slowing. The unity it once claimed to uphold had cracked, not with a bang, but with a whisper, carried on the wind of a single question. If humanity could leave, why should anyone stay? At the center of the room, the human ambassador's seat remained untouched. No one had sat there since Daniel Carter walked away. Dust gathered on its surface. Some said it was out of respect. Others said it was fear. Either way, it stayed empty, a silent monument to a choice no one else had dared to make. The session began with a report from Vrel. He stood tall, his voice steady, but his eyes carried the weight of years spent chasing ghosts. All known human outposts are abandoned, he said. No signals, no ships, no traces. Earth's sun shows no unusual activity. Mars is cold and still. Even their deep space probes have gone dark. They are gone. A murmur passed through the chamber. Not disbelief this time. Acceptance. The core Dominion representative shifted in his seat. Then let us declare them rogue. Erase their records. Pretend they never existed. But the Wellness elder, her feathers dull with age, spoke softly. You cannot unsee what you have seen. They showed us that freedom is possible. That is not something you erase. No vote was taken. No decree issued. The Concord simply moved on, though everyone knew nothing would ever be the same. Far from Xylos Prime, on a young world circling a quiet red dwarf star, Maya Lin stood on a grassy hill beneath twin moons. The air smelled of damp soil and blooming night flowers. Below her, children ran through the fields near Settlement Dome 7, laughing as they chased fireflies, real fireflies, grown from Earth DNA and released into this new sky. She wore simple clothes, her hair tied back, her hands calloused from garden work. She was no longer an archivist or a diplomat. Here she was just Maya, a teacher, a neighbor, a keeper of stories. In the dome's learning hall, she had just finished reading an old book to a group of children, The Little Prince. They asked questions about Earth, about deserts and roses and sunsets. She answered as best she could, not with data, but with feeling. Earth was blue, she said, and loud, and messy, and full of people who tried even when they failed. Kyle Brooks walked up the hill, wiping grease from his hands. He had spent the morning calibrating the planetary shield. the final layer of the system that masked their biosignatures from deep space scans. It worked perfectly. To any passing ship, this world looked barren, lifeless, unworthy of notice. "They'll never find us," he said, standing beside her. Maya nodded. Good. They didn't speak of the past often. There was no need. The past lived in the bread they baked, the songs they hummed, the way they greeted each other in the morning. It lived in the quiet moments, not the grand ones. Back on Earth, what was left of it, a skeleton crew maintained the final systems. Most had left years ago. Only a few remained to power down the last reactors, seal the final vaults, and activate the sun's masking field one last time. When their work was done, they would board the last shuttle and join the arcs already scattered across the galaxy. Earth would not be destroyed. It would simply sleep, waiting, perhaps, for a time when it could wake again, on its own terms. In Geneva, the old United Earth Directorate building stood empty. Rain fell on its roof, just as it had the day Maya left. Inside, a single terminal still glowed faintly. It ran a looped message sent years ago and never turned off. "We chose peace. You chose control. We will not be your lesson." No one saw it. No one heard it. But it played on, a quiet echo in a world that had chosen silence over surrender. The galaxy tried to forget. New trade routes formed, avoiding old human paths. History lessons shortened the chapter on Earth to a single paragraph. Some species even claimed humanity had never been real, that they were a myth, a cautionary tale invented to explain the conquered's slow decline. But others remembered. On distant worlds, young thinkers gathered in secret to study human art. Poets quoted Maya Angelou. Engineers pored over old schematics of human fusion reactors, amazed by their simplicity. And in the darkest corners of the rim, species whispered of a blue planet that walked away from gods and lived to tell no one. That was the true legacy. Not weapons. Not empires. Not even survival. But the proof that you could say no and mean it. On the new world, night fell. The twin moons cast silver light over the fields. Maya and Kyle sat on the hill watching the stars. None of them were familiar. None belonged to the sky they once knew. But they were beautiful all the same. Down in the dome, a baby cried. Someone sang a lullaby in Mandarin. Farther out, a farmer checked his irrigation lines. Life went on. Not as it was, but as it could be. And somewhere in the endless dark, other species watched. Not with anger. Not with hope. But with fear. Because humanity had done the one thing power could not control. They had chosen to be free. And in choosing freedom, they had shown the galaxy that the table was never the prize. The prize was the right to walk away. The stars burned on, and Earth, though unseen, was finally at peace.